This country estate appears to be picture perfect.
I mean, this is our dream home.
But government air monitors across the area reveal invisible radioactive particles are blowing in the wind here, threatening to tear apart the world Elizabeth and Josh Lamerson built for their two sons.
They trust in us to take care of them.
How scared are you?
Very scared for our children.
You gonna move?
This is our home.
From the Lamerson home, it's easy to spot the source of their fear. That red and white water tower just over the tree line is right in the middle of the now closed Portsmouth Gaseous Diffusion Plant, known as PORTS, a massive 3,700-acre compound, once crucial to making America's nuclear bombs. The U.S. Department of Energy, or DOE, says there's no threat from the radioactive uranium and other materials that were processed and disposed of at ports. But children who live near this plant continue to die from leukemia and rare cancers.
I mean, the risk is here. The risk of, cancer, the risk of dying.
Zahns Corner Middle School was closed in 2019 after tests revealed enriched uranium inside. This air monitor across the street, operated by DOE, picked up Neptunium-237 and Americium-241, radioactive particles tied to even more dangerous plutonium. Both the monitor and school are 4 miles from ports. That's 8 times farther away than the Lamerson home, which is just a half-mile from the plant. In public meetings like this one on April 27, 2019, DOE representatives suggested the enriched uranium and other radioactive particles might not have come from the plant, but from common items like smoke detectors, which have low levels of americium, or more likely, they said, from fallout that dropped decades ago during America's atomic bomb tests.
Which you can find in our atmosphere, goes to atmospheric testing.
Elizabeth, who has a degree in environmental biology and used to work at the plant, didn't buy that.
Did you get the truth from DOE?
No.
But proving the plant, not fallout, produced those particles would be difficult without some high-powered help.
I saw this email from Elizabeth to Ohio EPA, and I said to myself, I like the tone and the directness.
Enter Dr. Michael Ketterer, a renowned professor emeritus of chemistry and biochemistry at Northern Arizona University, who found Elizabeth while researching ports on the internet.
And he finds you.
And he finds me, yes.
That's pretty amazing.
Yes. I've said from the beginning there's a lot of divine intervention.
Dr. Ketterer and Elizabeth teamed up. Elizabeth agreed to collect samples from dozens of sites around the plant, everything from water and sediment in nearby creeks to soil, even dust from inside homes. Dr. Ketterer agreed to test it all for free.
If I can help them, I will try to help them.
I joined Dr. Ketterer in his lab in Flagstaff, Arizona, where he continues analyzing Elizabeth's samples using this. A mass spectrometer, a device that incinerates material, forcing it to give up its atomic secrets.
I know very well that there is an awful lot riding on these measurements.
Particles from ports have a unique signature, identified in several government studies. So does fallout from those atomic tests. Using those formulas and his spectrometer, Dr. Ketterer pinpointed the radioactive signatures in the samples Elizabeth sent, allowing him to make a definitive discovery that he says upends DOE's statements.
It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible for the source of this to be nuclear weapons testing fallout.
In this report on April 27, 2019, Dr. Ketterer published the data from Elizabeth's samples and reached a clear scientific conclusion, writing, "The Ports facility is the source of the enriched uranium and is also the source of non-fallout neptunium and plutonium."
Were you stunned when that came out?
Sure, absolutely. It completely takes DOE's argument away of this isn't us.
Today, DOE responded to my questions, not to dispute Dr. Ketterer's findings, but to state in writing that it conducted its own analysis of more than 10,000 samples and found the radiation doses well below regulatory limits. Still, Elizabeth's fight to get the truth about those radioactive particles is far from over. And what she and Dr. Ketterer discovered next is frightening an entire community. My Local 12 investigation Fallout continues only on Local 12 News, Monday at 6. I'm Dwayne Pullman. I'll see you then. In a land where the Appalachians spill into the hills of southern Ohio, the breeze brings more than just wind. Radioactive elements are drifting around the now closed Portsmouth Gaseous Diffusion Plant, or PORTS, a massive complex that enriched uranium for America's atomic arsenal. In 2019, testing at the now closed Zahns Corner Middle School revealed enriched uranium inside. Samples and scientific studies have uncovered more uranium and particles associated with plutonium in the nearby environment, too.
This is our home.
Josh and Elizabeth Lamerson, who live just a half-mile from Ports, blame their neighbor for contaminating their community.
When you worry about your children, what are you most worried about?
Cancer.
Pike County is at the top of the list for cancer rates in Ohio. The U.S. Department of Energy, or DOE, points to data it obtains from 15 air monitors it owns and operates around the plant to say those radioactive particles are significantly below limits set by state and federal environmental laws. While that's not in dispute, where those particles come from is. In meetings and statements, DOE continues to say ports might not be the source of the radiation, that the contamination may be tied to fallout from nuclear bomb tests that happened decades ago.
Avenue, which you can find it in our atmosphere, was the atmospheric testing.
Did you get the truth from DOE?
No.
The Lamersons say they don't believe DOE.
So you didn't trust them?
No, absolutely not.
But DOE controls the monitors and the message. Then Josh came up with an idea.
Just a harebrained idea.
To buy his own monitor and check the air himself.
I just figured if DOE could have them, we could have them.
Forgive me, what's your degree in, sir?
I don't have a degree.
But his wife does.
I have a degree in environmental biology.
From Ohio University. So Josh convinced Elizabeth to spend $5,000 to buy and operate this.
That doesn't look like $5,000 to me.
Doesn't.
But inside this modest-looking monitor is a state-of-the-art machine.
It is the same brand of air monitor that DOE uses.
Here at the top, filters like this one capture particles with a clear purpose to discover what's in the air.
Yeah.
If it's here,
Yeah,
it's everywhere.
exactly.
Elizabeth began collecting those filters.
You didn't have lined up a
No.
lab to examine this, right? When
Correct.
you put it
Then she met Dr. Michael Ketterer, a professor emeritus of chemistry and biochemistry at Northern Arizona University. Dr. Ketterer and Elizabeth teamed up. First, Elizabeth collected water, soil, and dust samples in an area surrounding the plant. Dr. Ketterer analyzed all of it for free.
If I can help them, I will try to help them.
In 2019, Dr. Ketterer released this report on Elizabeth's samples, concluding the Ports facility is the source of the enriched uranium and is also the source of non-fallout neptunium and plutonium. Next, Dr. Ketterer turned his attention to the Lamerson's monitor to answer the question of what's in the air. Inside the Science and Health Building on the campus of Northern Arizona University, I met up with Dr. Ketterer at work in his lab, where he continues to cut up Elizabeth's filters and analyze them using a high-temperature argon plasma mass spectrometer. Dr. Ketterer plotted the particles he found from those filters on this graph that he says reveals enriched uranium captured by the Lamerson's air monitor that could not be naturally occurring. In March 2020, Dr. Ketterer released this report, concluding it is evident enriched uranium emissions from ports is the single explanatory source of the particles floating in the air and captured by the Lamerson's air monitor.
How valuable do you think your monitor has been?
I think it's very valuable.
Why?
I mean, because it gives us data that we can trust.
Data that Dr. Ketterer and Elizabeth say reveals the truth about what's really in the air here.
That there's contamination coming from the facility, from the DOE facility.
I consider these to be pretty much the most important samples I've ever analyzed in my whole life.
Dwayne Pullman, Local 12 News. At the center of the Portsmouth Gaseous Diffusion Plant, or PORTS, workers are removing siding from a massive half-mile-long building known simply as the X326. Jeff Walburn, who worked at the plant for 31 years, says dust from decades of enriching uranium for America's nuclear bombs has built up high on these rafters.
There's 70 feet of contaminated material. It's going out. It's going to the four winds.
Nearby, a 250-acre landfill is being carved out of the earth to dispose of demolition debris and radioactive waste. Neighbors like Josh and Elizabeth Lamerson, who live a half mile from the plant, are trying to stop it.
Would you want to come here? Would you want to build a business?
The landfill is a crucial part of a $2 billion cleanup at Ports, where debris from dozens of buildings and radioactive waste will be buried over the next 2 decades. The U.S. Department of Energy, or DOE, which oversees the complex, insists the demolition at Ports is safe, pointing to its own monitors as proof there's no harm posed by the work. But Dr. Michael Ketterer, a professor emeritus of chemistry and biochemistry at Northern Arizona University, examined what DOE's own air monitors reported and uncovered this: big spikes for technetium-99, or Tech-99, a radioactive byproduct of nuclear reactors. As his graphs reveal, the amounts of Tech-99 from 2014 through 2016 were hundreds of times higher than detection limits at all the monitors, no matter how near or far from the plant.
Those emissions were just skyrocketing, and they then fell down rather abruptly in 2017.
And Dr. Ketterer had no idea why, until he learned what was happening inside the plant. In this DOE internal demolition schedule, from 2014 to 2016, the same time that Tech-99 was spiking, crews inside the plant were cutting out converters and compressors, critical components in making enriched uranium.
We're looking at Portsmouth.
Dr.
Ohio.
David Menuda, the former chief scientist at Ports, says that cutting is the likely source of the Tech-99 release.
Does it coincide with what you would expect in cutting up pieces and parts in the plant?
Yes, in the 326 building, where those cuts were made, is very likely where the technetium-containing gas concentrates.
Dr. Ketterer believes the heat from that cutting released Tech-99 as a gas that traveled long distances, registering in high amounts, even at this monitor near the town of Otway, 14 miles to the southwest.
Do you believe it spreads out much further than what it is?
It has to, it's obvious.
And that isn't the only connection between contamination and demolition that Dr. Ketterer found. He analyzed this batch of air filters that were collected in 2020, and this time he discovered this: a big drop in the amount of enriched uranium in the air from March until the end of June. That coincides with the shutdown at Ports that happened during the height of the pandemic. According to this document, dated March 26, 2020, the Ohio EPA agreed to allow all work at the plant, which had slowed, to stop completely due to COVID-19. And in this internal memo, plant employees were notified that work, which had started up in June, would return to full force on July 27th. That pandemic pause at the plant from March to June matches that dramatic drop in enriched uranium in the air that Dr. Ketterer uncovered.
It's just a mind bender that the connection of the dates to when we know COVID kind of started and the country shut down, is when the emissions from the demolition activities appear to just abruptly stop.
And just as clear, Dr. Ketterer's analysis reveals enriched uranium returned to the air when demolition work at the plant resumed.
You tear it down and it goes wherever.
The radiation results are upsetting to neighbors like the Lammersons, who are scared about what's being carried in the air.
How scared are you?
Very scared for our children.
The Department of Energy continues to say the radiation around the plant is at safe levels, but DOE has yet to give me a response about what Dr. Ketterer uncovered. I'll let you know when it does. And of course, I'll continue investigating. I'm Dwayne Pullman, Local 12 News.